The time is now 6:47. The date is Wednesday, March 12th, 2025. Commissioner Vendetti is absent. All other members are present. We'll take a roll call to open. Buzz? Aye. Marilyn? Aye. Dot?
Aye.
Megan?
Aye.
Jim's an aye. Oh, I'm sorry, we're missing Brian. So Commissioner Brian Payne is missing as well. Please note that we're doing a hybrid meeting with in-person and virtual attendance. If a meeting of the virtual public would like to make comments during the public hearing, please use the raise a hand function on Zoom, and you will be assigned a speaking time. If you are listening in via telephone dial-in, press *9 to raise your hand, and press *6 to unmute yourself. This meeting is being recorded by the local scene, and a record of this meeting will be posted on the local scene website as soon as they are able. Anyone intending to make an audio or video recording of this meeting should notify the chair at this time. Seeing none, we'll move forward. We have an announcement. Kingston's Open Space Committee is still looking for a new member. The committee assists conservation in overseeing the management and use of conservation properties to help all of us better access and utilize the resources in a positive way. This is an opportunity for a resident to assist in implementing the town's open space plan, help improve parking and trails, and identify future conservation and passive recreation priorities in town, among other benefits. You may inquire by calling the Conservation Department at 781-585-0537, or by emailing Juliana at jdunham@kingstonmass.gov. That's JDENUM@KINGSTONMA.gov. Signing documents where the agent brief us on what needs to be signed.
Yeah, we got Bills from Environmental Partners Group for MS4 support, Beals and Thomas for construction oversight on Sampson's Brook Headwaters Restoration Project, W.D. Mason for office supplies, and a mileage reimbursement for myself.
Right here.
Then we should jump right into hearings.
These came here.
Yeah.
Are they all aggregated in that last one?
Yep, all set.
All right, so we'll,
Hearings.
whereas we're at 6:50, we'll move to hearings. Section A, 10 Shore Drive, notice of intent for the proposed construction of 2 additions to a single-family house with coastal buffer zones. I now reopen a hearing for the notice of intent for the proposed construction of additions to a single-family house at 10 Shore Drive within the buffer zones to several coastal resource areas. Mr. Agent, you want to kick us off?
Did anybody miss the first meeting on this, or was everybody in attendance?
I was in.
I was here.
Everybody was here?
Remote.
Okay, just making sure. So we've already gone through a lot of this. I had some updates from recent information that was submitted. Decking came out less than the 3/8, which wasn't really something that mattered. Like I said before, it appeared pervious, and they did confirm that. Spacing measures at slightly less than a 1/4 inch with crushed stone beneath. So they've redone the calculations to show the existing deck as pervious, though it doesn't meet the commission standards that they require when they issue a permit for something that's pervious. They updated materials to include now 2 proposed dry wells. They are sized for the 10-year storm, and I believe they do not include the runoff from the front of the house, just from the peak.
Correct,
back.
the ridge line back in the addition.
No test pit data. They did provide the NRCS soil profile characteristics and said that soils would be assessed before the project would start. So there was a slight expansion in the updated plan of mitigation plantings. To me, it looked like probably 220 to 225 square feet. It still said 210 on the plan. 210 is what was submitted before. But it had notably expanded, I think, to the northern property line. with the addition of a 2-inch caliper native tree, and as also a native tree to replace the one that was cut down without a permit. Conservation posts are now shown to protect the mitigation plantings. We talked about variances. We did receive an update March 5th, but I did let them know that 2 additional variance requests would be needed, and I believe they have prepped and
Yeah,
provided that at this
sent
point.
that over to you.
After assessing the deck as, the existing deck as pervious, the existing impervious coverage is 29%, and they now propose an increase to 35%.
Can I just because this is the first time I'm seeing it,
Sure.
just for my clarification, I believe in the original plans, we weren't taking off any of the decking, but it looks on this one that you are taking off the decking. Is that correct?
So the original plan was to remove the decking for the construction of the addition and then essentially build it back in kind in the same exact location minus the footprint of the decking. So that'll be proposed and noted on the plan as composite decking with the adequate 3/8 inch minimum spacing and a crushed stone surface below, basically just going in the same exact footprint around the addition.
So Matt, just on that note that you were saying, it sounds like now there's an opportunity to actually check off the box on that, that's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, essentially it would, like, currently it is pervious in the sense it does pass water through and the water likely infiltrates. Having it be at 3/8 and documented in an order of conditions and a COC, a plan of record, would make it pervious going forward. You would put a condition, a special condition on the OOC saying that the deck would stay in a 3/8 spacing condition in perpetuity.
Does
So
that
essentially
change the numbers? So
Then with the next time somebody changed the, you know, the boards out, it wouldn't be, you know, tight.
But the numbers, does it affect the numbers that you're talking about right now,
No.
or? Okay.
No, because basically the first time we saw this, it was pitched as an impervious deck being converted to, a portion of it being converted into impervious structure, part in addition to the house. And now what we're seeing is the deck in its current state is pervious, and a portion of it would be converted to impervious structure. I'll just finish running through what I have, and then he can give an update on sort of what they've done. So I talked already about the variance requests, that there's a slight uptick in square footage of mitigation plantings, addition of a second dry well connecting the existing downspouts on the rear of the house. The detail shows the coverage area recharged. And again, the dry wells are rated to handle the 10-year storm. KWPR typically requires that stormwater systems be designed to handle the 100-year storm, but there's no requirement for stormwater systems for single-family house lots. This is just being offered as a mitigation feature, so there's no requirement to have it, but still it's something the commission could discuss. And I basically wrote that the commission may have questions regarding the benefit of the dry wells where so many storms now exceed that 10-year threshold. I'm not sure one way or the other if it does or doesn't. I would say the project pretty clearly passes the standards of the Wetlands Protection Act. It's KWPR and the impervious surface calculations where it runs into issue, and where I think the commission needs to determine or decide if they have enough information to determine whether what you see is enough to mitigate a 6% rise in impervious surface up to 35%. You know, KWPR has that max 15%, but a lot of properties on the Nook are already well over 15%, but we've had other filings recently where they're able to stay, you know, without adding impervious surface or offer mitigation that clearly outweighs. So I don't know in this case whether it does or doesn't. I think that's up to the commission to determine. I sort of wrote that the plantings and the dry wells may be enough. I wrote may because, again, I'm not sure one way or the other, but may be sufficient to mitigate the increase, given that the current conditions are far from ideal from a runoff perspective. Right now, you have just a property where all the runoff goes off the roof and the rest of the property and goes right out over the revetment wall and into the bay. So the commission could come to a determination through group discussion. They could look for a second opinion. They could ask for more information. You know, we discussed the updated proposal calling for the remaining portion being spaced out to 3/8. That would ensure that it continues to drain, and you could make that a perpetual special condition on any OOCs issued, which would continue on to the COC and make sure it stays that way. We already talked about the tree. One last thing, I mentioned before, just the shellfish growing area down there. Just pointing out for the record, the project is landward of the resource area that would be called land containing shellfish. That's defined in KWPR and CMR. I don't know if the commission needs to have that on a plan or not. Basically, in this situation, the bay is land containing shellfish. But that's just sort of a clerical thing. But ties into sort of everything I've been talking about, you know, improving runoff conditions is definitely beneficial. A lot of properties right now on the Nook are non-compliant, pre-existing, and are causing issues with the bay. So that should definitely be an area of focus. And that's all I got.
I have a question.
Sure.
There's a considerable amount of stone walkway, it looks like all stone, that goes to the front and then all the way back to the back as well. Could some of that be replaced? Is that built so that it's permeable or not? And if it's not, could some of that be replaced or removed?
I would not consider it, Chris Sanderson with Merrill Engineers, by the way, for the record. I would consider it impervious area, you know, stone pavers with mortar in between.
Okay.
So, you know, we could potentially look at that. My train of thought was, you know, kind of ripping that out during construction is causing more disturbance than necessary. You know, we believe with the incorporation of the 2 dry wells, which now will capture the runoff from the ridge line of the house to the back,
Yeah.
including the addition, that's over 600 square feet. They will be capturing and infiltrating into the ground. Essentially, they won't be directly discharging to the resource areas. You know, currently, I think there's just a drainage pipe daylighted from the roof drain that goes right out into the coastal bank. So, you know, we're really trying to make, you know, that our case that the benefits of, you know, reducing that overland flow of stormwater down to the resource areas, along with a nice planted native buffer zone.
Right.
You know,
Yeah, just like a lot of this walkway is superfluous now. Maybe it could just be removed
yeah, that's,
or moved.
I think if everybody is in agreement with that, that's definitely something that we can discuss
Could be
with
done
the
after
owner.
construction,
Yeah,
yeah.
And that's all existing, correct?
that's all existing.
Pardon?
I was just making sure that it was all existing and not new. Yeah, please.
So that's, I asked that question last week, so that walkway that runs down the side of the house is a door.
Buzz, is your mic on?
in the house, correct?
There is, correct. So it is a, you know, traveled access path.
Buzz, is your mic on?
No. So, repeat for the microphone. So I did ask that question last week, and that path that you see running from the driveway and banging a left and going down the side of the house goes to a door that enters into the house. So that is a used walkway, you know, it's there for a reason, it's not just extra.
Are you keeping that door as well as the new covered porch? So you'll have 2 entries?
I believe so. The
Okay.
side back door will stay,
Okay.
correct?
Can I ask a question? The square footage of this house, is it just the roof line's just a regular split,
Correct.
right? And the actual footprint of the house, what are we talking?
We're probably looking at about 30 2 feet wide by, 28 feet deep at the deepest portion, and looking to bump that out an additional, 5 feet with the addition.
So plus minus 450 feet on half the
Yeah,
ridge
so
line?
I calculated the ridge line back plus the addition at 627 square feet. So you're looking at, 1,100 square feet total.
Yep. And what's the 2% increase on the impervious, Matt? What was-
6%.
It was 6%? What's the number? Do you have that?
20, you mean the square footage?
Yeah, what's that 6% equal? The reason why I'm asking is if they're catching 600 feet worth of runoff and putting it into a, ground discharge, the impervious is really about, ground recharge, right? So
It's
if-
about
if-
260 square feet is that 6% increase.
So if we're getting 600 feet of ground discharge in return for 200 feet more impervious, I'm feeling that's something that breaks in that direction.
262.
Yeah, so that's, Mr. Chairman, so that was gonna be my point, is that, currently the water just sheets across the ground. I know we say that deck is pervious, but the ground underneath it is not pervious. The water just runs across and goes into the bay.
There is crushed stone underneath the deck. Now, underneath, I don't know how thick the crushed stone is. There could be a hard layer under that.
From a practical standpoint, when it's raining heavy, the water is running across the yard and going out the back,
Right.
right? So my argument would be that now we're retaining the water and with a sizable 2 dry wells, and we're allowing that water to leach into the soil rather than running off the bank. I would consider that a net improvement rather than even, I know we're increasing, on paper, the impervious surface, but I feel like we're, it sounds like we're about a 2 to 1 better, so 600 to 300, call it. So I feel like it's a win.
I mean, I'll piggyback off that with what I was saying earlier, right? I get that, at some point the ground's gonna saturate and it's gonna run across, but I think that anytime that we can grab water in this area and put it down below surface, even if it's just a 10-year capacity, meaning that we don't probably have too much more capacity that we could get to, for 100 years storm, we're doing something better. And-
Sure.
And, when it comes down to these types of variances, and especially in this neighborhood where there's a lot of impervious surface, we gotta look at, not perfect, but we did something better. And I think that's, I think I'm in agreement with Buzz when it comes down to that.
I had a question.
Please,
Question?
please.
I'm just curious why you made it 10-year.
So just with the
Not
limited,
larger, obviously.
yeah, the limited room we kind of have in the back there, I did a couple different sizing methods, just, the cubic feet of storage in the drywall, how much stone I put. A lot of, every town's different, but a lot of standards, for street drainage systems, pipes are sized for a 10-year design storm. That's basically saying a storm of that size only happens once every 10 years. So in storm events larger, all that's going to happen, and I tend to think those numbers are actually conservative, that, our stormwater management software calculates. But essentially, the pipe will just backflow to an overflow downspout that has a little stone splash pad there. And essentially, roof runoff is considered clean runoff. You don't get the debris sediment that's typically in a roadway that we really don't want going to the resource areas. So that's kind of where I came up with that one.
From that perspective, we've had a lot of discussion on that over the years here. There's lots of things that people spray up on their roof that shouldn't be put into a resource area.
Yeah.
So let's not go on that angle, because then we have to argue about it. But from the impervious and the runoff, I think I see exactly where you're at, and I don't disagree with it, so. More questions?
So, assuming we were gonna move this,
Mhm.
we have the variances all in writing that we need, and we could just say as requested.
Yes. You'd want to talk special conditions. I know we talked some of these before. We talked about conservation posts in perpetuity, detailing the allowance for maintenance of the mitigation area is always important.
And we have the thing about the herbicides.
Yeah, there was an additional, there was a proposal for additional stockpile of silsock on this project, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I forwarded just to put that as, to be reviewed as part of the pre-work ESC check, because a lot of times that shows up on the proposal and never happens. And that's kind of hard for me to track sometimes. Any dumpster that's used as part of this project must be covered. You have a lot of projects in this area that stay open, a lot of things blow out, and we don't want that happening in the bay. If there's any specifics anybody would like to talk about with that, as far as how that could actually work, that would be good.
No, they have, you can request a talk for the dumpster.
Okay. And then, what did I mention earlier? The decking. So the usual, like you said, the chemicals and fertilizers, no, the narrative does state no pesticides and herbicides within the 100-foot buffer zone, only organic fertilizers. I've noted that organic fertilizers can be just as damaging in close proximity to coastal resource areas, but better than the alternative anyways.
And then assuming that we have, again, I'm just making some assumptions, assuming that this moves forward and they come for their certificate of compliance, what are we looking for a grow period to make sure that these plants are gonna survive?
It's up to the commission. In some cases, you know, I think typically in enforcement situations, there's several years of monitoring and reporting. For mitigation, I mean, I don't know. I mean, that, like I said, you want something in there that details how they can maintain it, so it's not really a no-touch area the way in some areas it is. Not gonna have trees growing, but as long as it grows densely, that should be fine. I mean, if you want to set something like, you know, you could do a continuing condition on a COC that says that, you know, we need to have a check on that after 2 or 3 years, and that if the coverage doesn't approximate 75%, that they need to put in extra plantings or seed or something like that. Could do something like that.
So I'm still stuck on some of these numbers because to go from 29 to 35, I'm just, when Matt mentions mitigation, I'm just wondering if there's anything else you would consider from the perspective of mitigation that we haven't discussed here. I mean, you talked about the dry wells, leaving it at the 10-year and.
Yep, so the dry wells are proposing to capture over half of the existing roof plus the addition. Right now, we're capturing none of it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one. The buffer zone plantings, we're offering area equal to the size of that addition. The addition being in a previously disturbed area, which at first we were considering swapping impervious for impervious. Again, I think that question's still in the air a little bit. The decking has insufficient spacing, some crushed tone below, but you know, during larger storm events, that water will make its way down.
Can
You know,
I
obviously they-
interrupt for one second? Just because we talked about this a couple times, and I'm not trying to sound against that as a concept, but we've talked about in large storms, that's gonna break out, that's gonna do that anyways. When we're talking about 10-year storms happening every 10 years, that's not the case. Like, that's, I think, pretty well documented at this point, that we're getting the 10-year storm pretty frequently.
Right.
So I agree that getting stuff into the ground, and I'm a big fan of mitigation plantings, we are seeing real improvements here. But in terms of the concept that, you know, as is right now with the pervious deck that is gonna blow out in bigger storms, that's gonna happen here after this is done, absolutely. And assuming that this mitigation area does completely grow in and stabilize and start doing what it's supposed to do and set deep roots, stabilize the bank, provide habitat, filter out contaminants, it's gonna be a while. So for a while, you're absolutely gonna continue to have sort of the condition that you have now.
And the one other item that we haven't actually discussed yet that I want to mention that came up from a good comment during the previous hearing. So we have been consulting with a design build firm relative to the construction of the addition. And, we have decided that we will be moving forward, if all approved, with helical pile construction for the addition as well. So that won't be, a large excavation, concrete being poured back there. The new deck will be on helical piles. So really, to me, the helical piles are, say, 9 inches, 12 inches in diameter. I was told by the design build company that they would likely only need 4 or 6 for the addition. So to me, that kind of really minimizes impact, and there's probably less structural components that are going to be here after with the addition in the actual ground than for the current deck. So that's just
Okay,
something
well,
else
I
to-
had to ask.
No, no worries. All good.
Just-
How deep do those
Hang
piles
on,
go?
Hang on that, on the comment about the foundation, just because this came to us now and I didn't have time to look. The storm flowage fence still incorporated in this, or did?
Different
those-
project?
It's not this project?
No.
No, we're
That's the next
elevated,
one.
Okay,
we're
Yeah.
elevated above the
Pretty
lot.
similar looking.
all right,
Right.
all right.
No, all good.
I did the same thing. I was like, wait a minute, I
Yeah,
thought,
okay.
Sorry, can I,
Sorry, go ahead.
what are the depth of the piles expected to be? Are these,
I think that's something that's determined when they're out there, drilling and it hits that certain torque number. I wouldn't,
what's the tip, is it typically pretty
I think if
shallow
it's,
for these
if
situations?
it's real sandy material, it probably ends up pretty deep, but I wouldn't even know where to begin.
All right, and my only reason I bring that up is that there was another project that was gonna be, I believe, just on normal piles, and then when they went to build the project, realized that there was ledge really close and they could no longer do that, so they needed to come back and try to get an amendment to use a different support type, and the amendment process is not great. Just thinking in advance, I don't know if basically now is the time to discuss the potential for other options if that's not gonna work. Or just to have other language in there or something, just so that you don't have to come back for an amendment if the engineering,
mean
once
a
you're on
contingency
site
plan?
and assessing, shows something
Let me
different.
break that down. So your concern is that they won't be able to drive the piles to sufficient depth, the helical piles, and they'll have to switch to some type of pin foundation such as a sawn tube on the ledge.
Something, yeah, and then I have to try to determine if that's something I should be signing off on in the office, or something that should be going in front of the commission, and whether they have to go do our usual obnoxious, long process of amendment. Whereas right now, just some difference in language, or something, a note on the plan, or a special condition, or something could get past any issue.
Okay. I'll try to weave that in.
Good luck. Additional comments, public? Online?
I do not see any.
All right, I'll make a motion to close the hearing.
Second.
All right, we have a motion to close the meeting, in a second, we'll take a roll. Buzz?
Aye.
Marilyn?
Aye.
Dot?
Aye.
Megan?
aye.
Jim's and I, so that carries. Perhaps we have a motion?
This is a notice of intent, correct?
Correct.
So I might need some help with this motion, so I'll accept friendly amendments. So I'm gonna make a motion to approve the project as designed on the revised plans with the approval of the variances listed, with the standard conditions, with the additional conditions as read, and with the understanding that the preference is for helical piles, but if they do encounter ledge or difficult conditions, they can come back and with photographic evidence demonstrate to the agent that they can't use helical piles and they could switch to 8-inch sawn tubes on top of the ledge with concrete.
Friendly amendment with approval from the agent.
I think I said that, but yes.
Okay, second.
All right, so we have a motion, we have a second, we'll take a roll. Buzz?
Aye.
Marilyn?
Aye.
Dot?
Aye.
Megan?
Aye.
Jim's and I, motion passes.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Good luck. Nice location. Nice location. Very pretty.
right, we'll move on to section B. 2 Braintree Avenue, it's a notice of intent. I reopen a hearing for a notice of intent proposing construction of additions to a single-family house at 2 Braintree Avenue within the buffer zones to several coastal resource areas and lands subject to coastal storm flowage. Does the agent have any comments?
Let's have Nick give a little presentation while I grab my notes.
Mr. Ling?
Good evening, Nicholas Lang from Grady Consulting.
Hang on a sec. Can we turn him up, please? All right, please.
How's that sounding?
Much better, thank you.
Awesome. Nicholas Lang from Grady Consulting here on behalf of Veronica McCarthy for 2 Braintree Ave in Kingston. Would you like me to share my screen and put up the revised copy of the plan for you?
Sure.
Please.
And everybody see that?
Yep, but you definitely need to zoom in.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so, when we came before you last, we had 2 proposed additions before you. One is an infill of an existing overhang in the rear, and then the other addition in the front. As an offset to the additions, we had proposed to remove the brick walkway and a portion of the asphalt driveway to keep the impervious surface coverage at the same value. And we had also proposed 9 smart vents in the foundation of this existing dwelling in an effort to solidify the structure against stormwaters. And the commission had asked us to add some mitigation plantings in addition to the smart vents. So what we've done here is we've added almost 350 square feet of mitigation plantings. We have 21, what are they, Virginia roses, I believe? Yep, Virginia roses. What is existing right along the top of the bank there, we believe, are beach roses, so kind of a similar look, so that it should blend in nicely, but the Virginia roses are considered more native species, so we went with those instead. And it is labeled as a 1-to-1 mitigation. It is actually a little bit more than a 1-to-1 mitigation, but we have 270 square feet, I believe it is. Yes, there it is down at the bottom. 270 square feet of addition being put in there, but again, we are offsetting that by removing the walkway. So this is really a 345 square feet of mitigation plantings, and would be happy to answer any questions or comments that the commission has.
Matt, do you have comments?
Mitigation area, species is appropriate, no conservation posts shown. So without conservation posts and detailed conditions about them. Sorry. On the mitigation area, no conservation posts are shown. So without conservation posts and the detailed special condition on how to maintain the area, it's not really mitigation, more of a landscape bed. So I would recommend conservation posts to line that area. Everything we got was updated as requested. We did get the formal variance requests. That's all set. Request appears to meet the standards of WPA and KWPR, except where the variance is requested. Buffer planting proposed as mitigation for the variance request appears sufficient, provided that conservation posts are shown and added as a special condition, along with the typical special condition about maintenance of that area, allowable maintenance. I would recommend issuance of OOCs with special conditions. Same one about the dumpster. Any dumpster used as part of this project must be covered. The blurb about outdoor chemicals and fertilizers, and conservation posts.
Okay, we'll open up for discussion. I'll start. I believe last time we discussed this, I had asked about infiltration through dry wells. Did you look at that with your client?
I believe the consensus was that the soils out in Rocky Neck are so variable that mitigation plantings were the favorite method.
The conversation that we had last time, Mr. Ling, was that I would like you to look into it, so that we could say that we looked into what was proper for the site. This was the time to fix it, and this is subject to previous enforcement because there is problems with runoff. So is it your answer that you did not look into it because you just decided to go with the mitigation?
My notes reflected that your commission's preference at the end of the conversation was for mitigation. I do not have any notes reflecting a request for us to look into a drywall.
Okay. My specific comments to you was to please look into it. So we'll agree to disagree on that one. Go ahead. Matt, you got something?
Yeah, I think I remember that as well, but I think because this one was not increasing impervious surface, then the mitigation planting is probably sufficient. And I did mention this to the homeowner on the site visit, my recommendation would be to plant a tree in the front yard, roughly in the place of the large tree that was cut down a couple of years ago, and preferably for the homeowner or anybody in the area, a tree that would eventually get to some sort of decent size. Really need something down there that's going to absorb water. And the idea isn't necessarily that during a larger storm, a tree is going to immediately suck up tons of water, but it will be constantly doing that, therefore allowing more of it to get into the soil and stay rather than run off on the surface. So, again, I don't know that that needs to be a special condition or anything, but I would recommend planting a native tree in the front yard so that it can get started doing that task.
And the existing foundation, could you explain to me what the existing foundation is that you put in the vents in?
The existing foundation is an older foundation. I believe it's cinder block and mortar, if I recall correctly.
Crawl space or basement?
There is a crawl space, it's not a basement.
How deep is the footing, do you know?
I don't know. It's pretty filled in with dirt and sand in the cellar, so there's maybe 2.5 feet of free space above the dirt until you get to the top end of the foundation. But that, again, that varies. It was kind of dark. I'd have to pull from memory on that.
It looked pretty variable to me.
Did you see the foundation or just?
Just looking through, and I believe it was all covered in plastic. It was plastic on the ground, but it was kind of variable.
Buzz?
No, I mean, so I was on the commission when you were having the water issue. Where did you end up with the water issue with the neighbor?
That was a previous owner. They sold.
Yeah.
Oh. And so that's resolved or is still open?
So we got I believe an email or a phone call from them saying that I think the highway department did something in the road, like somebody did something in the area that was very minor, and then they weren't having the same flooding issue.
Okay.
So I think anyways from memory that it is that they thought maybe that it hadn't actually been from the neighbor, but was from the street all along.
Yeah, I remember that discussion, that there was missing some berm at the road.
Yeah, so I think ultimately that
Just-
was the,
Just on that discussion, Buzz, across the street, directly across Braintree Avenue, there's a new house or an expanded house that was a small little cape, and it became something much bigger with sloped driveway, so there's a lot of water pouring off as runoff, running down the driveway, hitting it, running across, and I think that's probably where it was, because if they fixed it with a little berm, it's pretty telling that the fix was for a reason, right?
Okay, so these are new owners, not the people that were here last time.
correct.
And these are the owners?
She's up on the screen.
Oh, she's on the screen, okay. Yeah. So, agreed, we need conservation posts 100%. I like the fact that they're putting in, plantings. I agree with you, I'd like to see a tree, maybe it can be over by that shed, so it's not blocking the view from the house, because obviously that's what they're paying for. Other than that, it seems pretty straightforward to me.
I'd even put the tree in the front yard. This plan, I think, is a little deceiving in the background detail there. There is no tree where it says 68.7 in the front yard. that tree's gone. The one where it says D,
When you say in
This-
front
this is
yard,
not true.
I'm,
We'll discuss
so
it.
you're saying the
That's
street
been-
side?
Streets,
yeah,
the front
yeah,
yard.
that
Oh,
tree
yeah.
right,
Yeah.
that tree
To me-
right there is
to me, the front
gone.
yard is the.
Both of those
is
are
the ocean.
gone.
That's the backyard.
That's a backyard.
I understand, I'm just telling you, that's why I'm clarifying.
No, I mean, it's all, there were,
Yeah, I remember that.
there were
Yeah.
cedar trees planted by
Yeah.
the shed as part of the enforcement,
Oh, okay, all right.
well
Yeah, so-
away from the
so, yeah,
trees that were cut
Yeah,
down.
so in that case, then, yeah, I'd like to see a nice tree in the front yard. And we should specify, you know, like a 4-inch caliber, you know, something substantial.
Okay, so I heard Buzz recommend a minimum 4-inch tree. Marilyn, Megan?
Did you want to pursue the downspout question or not?
I'm adamant about exploring that. This area is problematic. We just went through something similar on a very similar area, and that's why I brought it up last time. So,
Mm-hmm.
I feel very strongly about that, but I'm just one person, so.
No, I think it's important. I do.
More comments from the commission?
I agree. I just think with the history of this site and the site next to it and the one we just had before this, they're basically the same. The whole nook.
Except that one was going up in
Yes.
impervious coverage, and this one
And
stayed
then-
the
that
same by
reminds me.
taking some impervious surface away. Now, from a practical standpoint, not a strictly permitting and checking the boxes standpoint, removing, a small area of driveway and a small brick walkway and replacing that with crushed stone or something else, functionally, if that area is pretty compacted, is not going to get a ton of water into the ground. But they're still not really, from a permitting standpoint, increasing impervious surface.
Yeah,
So-
so I agree, but I think it goes back to the earlier comment about, water running across the ground versus going into the ground. I don't think it makes any sense to do anything with that deck in the back, but I think we make the argument that that new addition to the bottom right there probably should have its own drywall and just have them use the same GIS soil conditions and do a 10-year, storm calculation for that area and put a drywall pit in the front. It's not gonna hurt anything. And then we at least say we can make the old college try to collect that water.
I agree, but just for clarification, are you calling the front the ocean side or?
So the street side addition should have a drywall.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, esteemed colleague.
I miss you, Buzz. All right. All right, so we have a couple of comments. What's the best way to move forward with this?
Well,
Nick, what?
I think they need to go put a bunch of stuff on the plan and
Yeah.
come back.
I agree.
So I'd like to give them clear direction, so maybe I can rattle all that off and then we can all agree on that direction.
Yeah, let's just, before, I think that's a great idea.
Okay.
Before you do that, let's just kind of talk through the drywall, because there's a couple of different ways we could go. We could request that they put something in the back, we could request that they put something in the front, we could request that they put something on both sides, and I think it's whatever the commission wants. I think anything is better than nothing, so, I'm open on this one, I'm not pushing too hard, I think that it is a limited, change of the site, but at the same time, I think there's work to be done here, and I think that any work that's done is going to be beneficial, so.
Yeah, I think my argument for going for the street side is you're gonna be digging in the ground to put that addition anyways. So the ground's gonna get torn up there.
Okay.
Back is pretty limited work, and there's not a lot of room back there to do anything. So that's kind of my rationale for just going for the street side.
And you're good.
Matt, do we have any pictures about the ridge line? I don't see anything on the plans it's showing me, and I don't recall.
I'm in the wrong folder, hold on. Still in Shore Drive.
This.
Do you-
Yeah, I can show you. Nick, can you stop sharing your screen? I'll share mine.
Sure can.
So this is the area of the street side addition. So you can see the solar on the front roof.
And is it right in that little opening before you moved it? Is that exactly where we're looking at, the addition?
Yeah, it's going in that corner right there, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, so some of this area of
If you look at
mulch
that
and
overlay
crushed
plan, you can
stone.
see where.
Oh,
the-
are they taking down that gable end, right? Okay. Okay. All right. And then it's right next to another, downspout. So realistically speaking, I mean, if they're digging a hole there, they should be able to pick up that front gutter without too much work. And I think that my request, if we were gonna put it on the front, I think I'd like to see them try to pick up the adjacent gutter section too, to do as much as they could. That's not a big ask for digging wise. Other more conversation? Are
No,
we in it?
I think that sounds appropriate.
Okay. Any further comments on that? Buzz, are you able to continue, my friend?
Gonna try.
All right.
So my recommendation is to request that they revise the plan, and it would include conservation posts every, how many feet? Every 25 feet in that mitigation area?
Yeah, probably. I mean, typically, I think we do 50 feet, but when it's a
Really
small
small.
curved area, it's kind of hard to detail that without having them
So I would
closer.
say 25 feet on that one, standard conservation post detail. And then the street side addition incorporates a drywall that can take in as many downspouts as possible in that area. And that could be designed using the GIS soil conditions and size it for a 10-year storm, just like the last applicant. And that we get a 4-inch caliber tree, any particular species that we want, Matthew?
Native.
Native, 4-inch caliber native tree planted somewhere in the street side yard.
Matt, is native include, I mean, there's gotta be a little bit more direction. that we
Native
can
to
do stuff.
southeastern Massachusetts.
Native.
That's
What
my,
about-
that's my standard
What
for,
about
Pine trees.
ocean savvy?
Yeah.
I mean, that
Ocean
would be,
durable?
that would be
Ocean-
smart. We usually, when we do a tree as a special condition, it's usually tree must remain in perpetuity. So basically, if you kill it, you have to plant another one. So it's to your benefit to plant something that's coastal
Hardy.
tolerant. And if, I forget if there was a wetland scientist on this, most of the ones we see here are good with that stuff, or they can check with me on that.
Yeah,
Let's just have them, can we
Yeah,
ask
you
them
could
to
just
check?
say native to coastal area, southeastern coastal area. So that would be my instructions back to Brady Consulting, to make those amendments and then come back at the next hearing.
All right. Everybody in agreement?
Sounds good.
Okay. All right, Ms. Lane, do you have any questions for us?
It's just a.
4-inch tree in the front yard, drywall size for a 10-year storm, Concom posts every 25 feet. So I take it you're not asking us to swap the mitigation for a drywall, you want the mitigation plantings and the drywall?
Correct.
Yep.
I think I've got it, if I didn't miss anything there.
Okay. Is there anyone from the public that wants to be heard on this matter?
Okay, and so how much time do you need to get that in? You need to have it in a week before the next hearing.
Absolutely,
Okay, so you're okay to go to the next hearing?
yes.
Okay, and what would that be, date be, please?
26th.
I'll make a motion to continue this matter to the 26th hearing,
Second.
section,
You have a section, Matt?
D.
D.
what is it?
D.
D as in dog. That's my motion.
I have a motion, do we have a second?
I did second it, yeah.
Okay, we have a second, we'll take a roll call. Buzz?
Aye.
Marilyn?
Aye.
Dot?
Aye.
Megan?
Aye.
Jim's an aye, all right. Thank you, Nick.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Night, good luck.
All right, so we'll, it was just the two public hearings, correct?
Yeah, now we're back to,
So we will move back to action items. Excuse me, I will now open a public meeting to discuss the request for certificate of compliance for 18 Mill Road, Old Mill Road. Matt, is that a typo, Spruce Street? Which one? Old Mill Road, Spruce
yeah,
Street?
how did that end up in
I don't know, so, but just Old Mill
It's
Road.
just
right?
18 Old Mill Road, yeah.
Okay, combining two requests together under SE 037-0653 and SE 037-0772. The applicant has requested a continuance to April 9th. Matt, do you have any comments on this one?
No, I updated the commission before they filed the two requests and then realized that one of the properties was not in compliance with the original orders of conditions, which were older, and they were gonna be looking at getting a contractor and getting the work done. So this has just been kind of kicked. I would say if they don't have it on April 9th, maybe we talk about just denying it and they can refile it, but maybe give them one more shot.
Okay, all right, so your recommendation is giving them a shot.
Yeah.
All right, is there any comment from the public? Is there any comment from the commissions? All right, perhaps, do we have a motion to continue to April 9th?
I'll make that motion.
All right,
Second.
we have a motion and a second, we'll take a roll call. Buzz?
Aye.
Marilyn?
Aye.
Dot?
Aye.
Second?
Aye.
Jim's an aye. We will continue to April 9th.
Take one, pass it down. These were on the OneDrive, but I figured I'd put them anyways. Keep them for future reference if you want.
All right, I will now open a public meeting to discuss the request for amendment or deviation for 126 and 131 to 137 Ring Road submitted by Beals and Thomas on behalf of Ring Road Solar LLC, file number SE 037-0889 and SE 037-0890. Does the agent have any comments?
Maybe we'll have them give a little presentation on this, and then I'll give you mine.
Okay, Mr. Roden, are you here on this one?
I am, yes. Good evening. You guys hear me?
We can. Do you have comments? Oh, hang on one sec.
I guess I can give you a quick summary on what we're proposing, if that's what you're looking for.
Please.
Sure. So this is for the dual-use solar project on Ring Road. We are requesting to install some perimeter security fencing, approximately 2,700 linear feet of fence in Kingston. This project is both in Plimpton and Kingston. We're encroaching on the wetland buffer. I think the closest encroachment is approximately 2 feet from the edge of the wetland. We're proposing a wood post ag-style woven mesh fence with a 6-inch wildlife gap, with gates in strategic locations to allow access to the site. The installation method is pretty non-disturbance. So they're driven to the ground. There's no drilling required. We don't expect any ground disturbance, vegetation disturbance in the installation. And I think we're looking for the commission to determine whether this change, as we're proposing it, is minor enough to allow for administrative approval, or whether it's appropriate for an amendment request to get this approved.
Okay, so Matt, could you bring us up to speed? It sounds like they're asking to put a lot of fence up around something that we looked at and reviewed.
Sure, so this project was permitted, I believe, in 2019 or 2020, and then they came back for amendments because of an abutter agreement for screening plantings and a little bit of fence. And they did get that, I believe, back in 2021 or 2022, and now the project is mostly built, and they were not able to get, I believe, was it occupancy from the two building departments for lack of a security fence. So from a permitting standpoint, and I just shared our, amendment procedure with everybody, we start like this. We start with just a discussion at a public meeting without any notice to anybody or any of that. The way Wetlands Protection Act works, my recommendation is always not to issue minor modifications. Really, the Wetlands Protection Act only has consideration for like typos and things like that under that type of thing. But in this case, what they're asking falls under an exemption of Wetlands Protection Act that doesn't exist for KWPR. So you do have the ability to decide that what they're proposing, if you look at everything they've provided and decide that it's minor enough that you would rather deal with this through administrative review, we can do that and just decide that it's a minor change and that it's not affecting anything. It is very close to the wetlands. I did have questions about the method of installation and what the types of PT were going to be used, things like that. One of the things that I had sent to see if they could come up with any information shortly before the meeting was whether the state had any guidance in the SMART program on this, because if it's an agricultural operation, if it's just something that's being done to maintain an agricultural operation, then it's also exempt from KWPR. I think fencing in a solar project is not agricultural, but I have not scoured through the SMART program regulations. So if the SMART program has something in there where they decided that perimeter fencing counts as agriculture when you have a dual use solar and cranberry installation, then I would suspect that that would exempt review under KWPR as well, and they'd be fine with going forward and just doing the project. I just don't have that information. So he answered the question that I had just on how much was in Kingston alone. Said it was unclear what the shortest distance to wetlands are. It appeared to be quite close to 0. He said it was about 2 feet. It seemed like all the posts were going to be PT with the gate posts being galvanized, and I was looking for information on the specification of the treatment of the PT, because we have run through that before. KWPR is a little bit wonky in how it deals with PT, and we need to redo that when we revisit all of the regulations, but for now it's important just to make sure whatever the treatment is the least impactful to aquatic organisms and wetland health. If the installation method is just driving the posts, that gets past one of my questions, which is there any vegetative disturbance required? If you're putting a post within 2 feet of a wetland, are you having to cut any of the native vegetation in order to get there, or trample it, or that sort of thing? I just had questions on that. So yeah, KWPR 5.19, land and forestry and agriculture. Work performed for normal maintenance or improvement of land and agricultural use as defined herein, or work performed under an approved forest cutting plan on land and forestry as defined herein shall be exempt from filing requirements provided that written notice has been given to the Kingston Conservation Commission prior to commencement of work. Then it specifies it must also conform to 310 CMR 10.04 and 10.53 and conform to the definitions in these regulations. So that really is my ultimate recommendation, is that the applicant should look into the SMART program regs as mentioned above, or state that they already have checked and that there's nothing in there. At that point, when we have that information, the commission should determine whether the changes proposed are minor enough to allow that minor modification approval by admin, or whether the changes are appropriate to hear as an amendment request in a future public hearing, keeping in mind the standard that amendments must not be more detrimental to resource areas than the approved plans.
All right, Mr. Roden, I believe you wanted to address something that Matt had recited.
Yeah, just addressing some of his questions in a little more detail. So the posts are currently proposed to be PT, including including the gate post, so no galv will go on the ground. And I think we haven't procured any of the materials yet, so if there's something that the committee, the Conservation Commission can suggest that you would want to see in terms of a specification on the treatment or even lack thereof, like, we would be open to discussing that, since we haven't procured that material yet. You know, we did do as much of a dive as we could into the SMART program, Matt. I mean, I think we still need to do a little more investigation, but the initial sort of high-level review, there doesn't appear to be a provision for the installation of a fence as part of the agricultural operations. I think, depending on how you would interpret it, I mean, because it is dual use, there's potential there. We just think we need to do a little deeper dive to make sure there isn't anything that we could interpret in that way. So, just wanted to clarify a couple of those points.
Okay.
I have some questions. So looking at the layout of the fence here, it looks like you are really, really close to the wetland flags. I'd like to understand better what we're looking at as far as existing topography and what's there. Is it just grassland? Is it actually being used as agriculture? Is it off the road? What's the reason that we have to be this far away from everything if essentially, you know, we're talking cranberry bogs, access roads, and now solar installed above the bogs? So I'd like some clarification on that.
So the location of the proposed fence, you know, we consulted with the farmer who's going to be farming the bogs, and in order to sort of do that efficiently, having a fence close to the bog or even in the bog is impractical for him to be able to get in there and do the harvest. And so this is the closest we could get to the access road in the bogs to still allow him to harvest the bogs. So that's sort of what's driving the current location of the fence. Ideally, we would be further away from the wetland. We would be sort of right on the inside of that beige access road as shown on the plan, on the inside of that, further away from the wetland. But that would be really impractical for the farming operations. Does that answer your question, sir?
I think you did as good as you can, and I think it's just gonna be something that I don't quite understand until I understand it, so.
Refresh my memory, this is an elevated solar panel system?
Correct, yeah, it's the arrays are 10 feet above the cranberry bogs to allow for farming activities underneath.
Yeah. And so what happened, so they came after you were done and they said, well, now we want a fence?
Yeah,
Okay.
so the project was fully permitted by both towns, you know, building electrical, as it was approved by the Conservation Commission and the planning boards. We constructed it based on those approvals, and they came back after the fact, said, no, we need to see a fence now.
Who came back after the fact?
The building department.
The who?
The building department.
From Kingston?
It was, so the inspector from Plimpton is also an alternate inspector in Kingston, and so he was sort of taking the lead on behalf of both towns, is my understanding.
Okay, and so what happens if we say no?
I'm not sure. You know, we're gonna have to come up with an alternate solution.
Well, no, my question is how is he the adjudicator of all things solar?
Well, he's interpreting the National Electric Codes, right? And so we've got to get his sign off based on that interpretation.
And what exactly did he say to you about the electrical code?
Well, the code has sort of a vague reference, and forgive me, I'm not the contractor who built the project. I'm representing the owner of the project. But he did say that there's a vague reference in the code about, access to these projects by qualified persons. We presented an argument that we believe that it was inaccessible, given sort of the fencing that we do have installed, the gates that are installed, sort of in areas where there would be potential access points. And that was the rationale of the original design, right? That it is inaccessible. But he disagreed.
Can I follow up on that? I expect that your inverters and your switchgear and everything that's really line voltage, and dangerous would ultimately be inside of some kind of fence structure. I vaguely remember this one, but I mean, it looks like at this point we're trying to enclose a property, saying that it's accessible to somehow to the public, when anybody can walk inside a gate and it's just as accessible. And I think that, I know that I have some concerns from the wetland side about putting pressure treated fence of this, quantity this close to where it ultimately would need to go to not be a hindrance to the farmer, and certainly I'm not trying to go that route. So from that perspective, I mean, can you confirm that you do have your inverters, in an area of site fencing or whatever you guys had originally detailed? Because I'm sure that the designer built that in, because that makes all the sense in the world, but I'd like to hear that from you.
Yeah, so you can see on the plan here that the equipment pads are fenced in.
Okay.
I think some of the exception that he took is that there are conductors on the back sides of these arrays and some collector, conductors that are elevated 8 to 10 feet in the air. They're not exposed conductors, they're fully insulated conductors, they're touch safe, but he's looking at those as exposed conductors, even though some would have to be on a ladder essentially to reach the things.
And this was the building inspector or the electrical inspector?
Electrical.
Okay. So I think before we consider any amendments or anything like that, I think you should encourage your contractor to reach out to the state and ask the state inspector for his interpretation in writing so that we can see that.
I agree 100%. I can tell you I deal with a lot of solar in my day job, and what I'm hearing here is not at all what I see elsewhere. So, the smart thing, does it change a little bit? Not if it's 8 feet off the ground at its lowest point, and you have everything in conductors that's, listed with, the proper UL ratings and, installed per the applicable NEC code. So from that perspective, I 100% agree that your proper path here is to review what you have there and confirm that this is in fact a valid request from the inspector, because I have concerns here.
Yeah, but
It sounds like Buzz does too.
Yeah, I want to hear it from the state inspector, not the
Yeah.
local.
Absolutely.
And then, how is the current solar panels fastened to the log now? Are they just weighted panels or are they posts?
Like a post, driven post.
Driven piles.
What
Gal-
kind of
galvanized.
material is the pile?
Galvanized.
Steel.
Say again?
Galvanized steel.
Okay. So I'm more inclined to say my personal opinion, that if we already have galvanized piles, that I would rather see if we have to have a fence, I would rather see galvanized posts rather than piles with pressure treated leaching into the soil.
I'll even go a little bit further. I'd rather deny it altogether and tell them they can't do it. Let them use us as an excuse. Let them
I
fight. Let the
understand
two
that, but
fight it
just
out.
assuming
Yeah.
for a minute that we get to a point where we need to
If we
have the
have to.
fence, I would prefer to see galvanized posts rather than pressure treated.
What if we use just an untreated post?
Well, my concern would be the longevity of it.
Not even cedar?
Could use black locust, be expensive.
I think we should table it. I really think I think that once the right person takes a look at this and sees that all your line voltage equipment is already inside a fenced-in security area, that this is just something that will ultimately suss itself out.
Go away?
So,
Would you want to continue this to the
I
26th?
listen, I fully recognize there's a lot of money involved here, and, that, you've got a lot of money invested, and you need to get this moving. But, I feel that they're putting us in the position of being the adjudicator of whether or not this thing can open, and I don't think that's our place. Now, if they come back and say, here's the code and here's why, and it's a signed letter from the state inspector, then my opinion is that I'd be looking for galvanized posts. That's one man's opinion.
From that perspective, I would agree with you that I wouldn't want to see treated that close,
Right.
or at least in that area. And I think that we would also want to talk about the things that we would normally talk about, the height. Is 6 inches enough? I don't know. What kind of passage do we need to? And I think that that's a whole different process that we would have to go down to, so.
I think that's what we put on the fence. There was a fence for privacy at some point, and I think we said it had to be 6 inches off the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah, 6
Wildlife
inches
passage.
typical for wildlife passage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what the WPA standard for being waived from WPA requires, that it has to have that.
Is that also for, isn't there like some box turtle or something around there?
I mean, that's kind of what they,
Is that
I don't know if
what
they're
it's for?
specifically doing that for box turtle. They're thinking similar species, and, aquatic turtles, things like anything,
Yeah.
all sorts of stuff can make it right under a 6-inch fence.
Ultimately, I mean, what's our standard? Is it 30, is it 40 feet for fencing? 30 feet for landscaping?
30
What
feet
do
is
we-
landscaping, so
we get
I think
considered landscaping?
it's probably 30 feet, because I believe in most cases fence would be considered landscaping, not structure.
Right?
If it was a big
We
enough
all
fence,
agree.
it may be considered a structure, but I mean, just a standard fence, I think, counts as landscape.
Changes a lot in this area as far as the
And
habitat.
I also make the argument that we are the Conservation Commission, and how many lineal feet of fence is this?
2,700.
So 27, so a half a mile.
Just I believe in our.
Yeah,
in
just
our
in
juris-
Kingston.
So there's more right
In
on the
Plimpton.
other side of the property.
Yeah, so half a mile of fence in our jurisdiction, I would not consider conserving anything.
Okay.
One man's opinion. It's a lot of fence and a lot of fence.
You want to push this 2 weeks and give him
Well,
time
we
to
need
check with the state
whatever they
inspector?
wanna do. Yeah.
Mr. Broden, would
Yeah.
2 weeks be
Yeah.
sufficient?
We can try it. I'll have to talk to the
Well,
contractor.
we can always,
always
we're not
push.
gonna be mad at you, we can always extend it
Okay,
again.
let's plan on that, and we can let Matt know if we haven't been successful with the state inspector. I think I have a sense that he's going to come back and agree with the local inspector, but I
Again,
can't.
we need it in writing,
Understood.
yeah,
Yep.
with the reference to the code that he's referencing, with his name on the bottom, with his signature.
Okay. And, sorry, you said if the 30 feet is the buffer for a fence?
Yeah, landscaping is a 30-foot, no-touch boundary from the edge of the wetland, and I believe in most cases, a fence is considered landscaping.
Okay.
2,700 feet changes a lot of things. as
But he
far
hasn't got
as
30 feet, right?
No.
He hasn't got anywhere near
amendments
30
for
feet.
me.
No, it's close, I believe he said the closest is 2 feet.
Yeah.
So in a lot of cases, because the way the bog is designed, you have your bog roads that are
Right.
separating
And
the
again,
bog from the natural
Yeah.
wetland.
So if you need to go closer than 30 feet, we would need to understand from the farmer's perspective why that would be. And then I personally would take that into consideration.
Yeah, we wanted to have the farmer on tonight, but he wasn't able to make it, but.
I understand, I'm just saying if that comes to pass, we're going to need him to explain that to us.
Okay.
From a permitting standpoint, I don't know that you could get 30 feet because the cranberry bog itself counts as a wetland, even though in this case, it's a wetland that's
Listen, the
directly
whole-
impacted
The
by.
whole thing's a pile.
the
All I'm
solar
trying to do
operation.
is- All I'm trying to do is get a
No,
resolution.
yeah, I'm not saying one way or the other, it's just from a strictly clerical perspective, I don't know that you can get to 30 feet, but you
Yeah.
certainly, I would say, putting PT,
Yeah.
Right,
know,
but
that
my
close to a
my
wetland is
point
fine.
is, we did elevated panels so that the cranberry bog could remain. If
yes.
we put a fence in the middle of the cranberry bog to stay 30 feet away from another line, we've kind of defeated the purpose of the whole beginnings of the process,
Right.
right?
Just looking at the
So it goes back to my
topography,
original
yeah.
point, that I don't think you need a fence.
And we'll find out.
We agree with that completely. We'll escalate to the state and see what they come back with.
Great.
Okay. Great. Any other comments? All right. Mr. Roden, do you have any other questions for us?
Not at this time,
All right,
no. Appreciate your time.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll make a motion to extend this to when?
March 26th.
Section D again?
No section for action items.
All right, no section. Make a motion, 26.
Second?
All right, we have a motion and a second. Okay, take a roll call. Buzz?
Aye.
Marilyn?
Aye.
Dot, excuse me.
Aye.
Megan?
Aye.
Jim's a yes. Thank you. We'll continue to the 26th.
Okay, thank you all.
Okay. Matt, if I did this right, we're on enforcement?
Yeah, there's nothing scheduled under enforcement. I didn't have anything on the agenda for enforcement. I did want a clarification from the commission, and I don't think that this needs to be on the agenda to have a quick, just, let me say, we talked at the last meeting about 44 Rabbith Road, and it was the second meeting where nobody had showed up. I had an email from the homeowner that I didn't get while I was here, so I didn't get it until the next morning, explaining that there was a medical issue and she couldn't be here tonight. So she had planned on being here, couldn't be here, and there's an ongoing medical thing. I don't want to give any details about anything. It's like medical stuff,
yeah.
but at that meeting, you had guided me to set a date, I believe it was 30 days, that if they didn't have that information to us within 30 days, then we would issue an enforcement order stating a date and have fines after that. I did pass that information on, but said that I planned on coming back to the commission to explain that there were mitigating factors there, and that may not be possible. So,
what is your recommendation for a relief from that timeframe?
just, I guess, a little more time. I know that they did reach out to the issue was needing the specs from the block manufacturer. They did reach out again to the block manufacturer, so everything should be hopefully in process. But I would say maybe just allow me to check back with them and put this on an agenda for, what is it now, March? I mean, can we put this on an agenda for late April and see what we have by then?
So we're gonna give them basically a 30-day reprieve for now?
That's my recommendation based on
Okay.
what
I'll
I
make
know
that
of
motion.
the situation. So maybe I'll put it
Let
on
me-
the second April agenda.
Hang on, let me just, if this isn't posted, should we be making motions on it?
That was my question.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that we need a motion. I
No,
just,
yeah.
Buzz, I just don't want to get us in
We
trouble.
gave him specific
you
guidelines.
gave me guidance.
Yeah.
Now,
Right.
basically my ask is like, let me not
So-
follow that guidance.
No, I understand, but I
Yeah.
wanna just put on record that we're giving them a 30-day extension from that original ask.
How about we just take a straw poll and say that we're all comfortable with a 30-day extension instead of taking an actual vote?
I think that's all that's required. I don't think that it matters necessarily one way or the other in this particular situation, or I wouldn't have brought it up. I would have made sure we modified the agenda. I could have modified the agenda for it, but I didn't think it was necessary.
Okay.
So, however you want to handle it is
My
fine with me.
straw says 30 days, I'm fine with it, my straw.
My straw says as well.
My
very
straw is
simple.
good for it.
Okay,
I'm fine with it.
everybody seems to be
Agreed.
similar length straws, right, Buzz? All right, the meeting minutes is no meeting minutes to approve, Matt?
No, I'm not doing minutes until I get assistance.
Okay, well, good luck with that. Updates, is there an update on the 2025 Eversource DMP update, project?
Yeah, we get every year something in the mail from Eversource detailing where in town they're going to be managing vegetation on their right-of-ways. We received that, so if anybody wants that information, whether it's a commissioner or a member of the public, we have it on file, we have it digital, they can reach out and ask for it. Essentially, it's them doing herbicide to keep tree species down. They treat some invasives, but not all of them. And they do some mechanical, everything's in there. They do have the 5-year vegetation management plan that can be sent to people as well if they want to see specifics.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments, Matt, on that? All right, how's about an update on ongoing projects, Matt?
Blackwater, the Sampson's Headwaters restoration, the in-water restoration work is wrapped up. They're gonna be pulling the sediment barrier that's in the stream by Friday because we need to get it out of there by the 15th, based on the permit for migratory fish. The plan now, we're going to assess the condition of where the pre-existing trail was and come up with a plan of attack for how much fill is needed, or, not fill, but hard pack. And get the trail situated. That should be hopefully in April. And we're figuring out how to do the bridges to replace where the water control structures were. We may have a deal on some gangways retired from various harbor masters that meet the very, very basic minimum width requirements of ADA, but they won't completely pass ADA because of the hatching beneath them. But we know with this project, it's not gonna be perfect. We want it to be as good as we can get it. So that's good. We've applied for a few grants lately. We have various things going on. We did a site visit for Maple Street dam removal for that grant we got for the feasibility study. So that's in process too. Lots of good stuff going.
Good job.
On Maple Street, that Foundry Pond now is very low. Has the dam been breached or opened or something?
No, I mean, they might have pulled boards out years ago, for all I know. I don't know if there were like boards in the
Yeah, I don't know. I never really
control
looked at
structure
it.
or something. It hasn't changed much since I started here that I could see, but it's, the vegetation in it, I think, has grown a lot. So
Uh-huh.
there's
Used
less,
to be a real pond.
less open water and more
Yeah.
stream with wetlands attached to it.
Okay,
But the dam is in pretty poor condition, but I don't know that there was an actual breach or anything like that over the years.
okay.
All right, sounds good. Anything else, Matt?
That's all I got.
All right. The next meeting will be held on March 26, 2025, starting at 6:30 PM. The time is now 8:10 PM. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Make that motion.
Second.
And we have a motion and a second. We'll roll call. Buzz?
Aye.
Marilyn?
Aye.
Dot?
Aye.
Megan?
Aye.
Jim's and I. Thank you.